What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Donald Trump is once again taking center stage with his controversial statements about the war in Ukraine, prompting an onslaught of reactions from media outlets across the globe. He praises Putin, insists he could wrap up a peace deal in no time, and even claims that Zelenskyy, the dictator, started the war. Even Kremlin dwellers are shocked with the harshness of the statements Trump made about Ukraine, so you can only imagine how crazy they are. You might wonder what is driving all these pronouncements. Why the sudden flurry of interviews, posts and press conferences? Is there any concrete plan beneath the noise? Over the past few days, Trump has been spinning the new realities around the war in Ukraine faster than even his most zealous supporters can keep pace with. Some people still believe that he is just about to sign a truce, while others see that nothing but hollow chatter. The truth seems lost in that blizzard of conflicting reports. So guys, well, today let's dissect the events of the past week and see if these countless statements hold any real value, or if they are just one more example of that old pattern. Plenty of words, zero follow-through. It feels like every time Trump steps up to a podium or opens his mouth on social media, he invents a new scenario. 1 minute, he's blaming Zelenskyy for causing the war. The next, he is promising to negotiate a miraculous statement. Originally, he stated that he loves Ukraine and will do everything possible to keep Putin at bay. Now, he is ready to gang up with the same Putin and deliver him even more concessions than Kremlin originally asked for. What will happen next week? Will defending Ukraine become his main priority once again? Highly unlikely, but not entirely impossible. With him, you just never know. This whirlwind of claims might confuse people used to political environments where every phrase is weighed and measured carefully. After all, politics in general is very slow-paced and bureaucratic. Every decision is carefully thought of and investigated before becoming the official statement coming out of the president's mouth. Well, in this case, we see the president who is just not afraid to speak his mind freely. But let's remember the man's past. For years, Trump has been lobbying these dramatic announcements, flipping maps of the world upside down and making grandiose promises that rarely take shape. It is the exact routine he has been employing right now with his "I'm ending the war immediately" storyline, which, by the way, transitioned from 1 day to then 1 month, then 100 days, and now we're talking already 1 year. He once declared that the Ukrainian and Russian delegates would meet at the Munich Security Conference, as though they were just waiting for him to give the order. In reality, no such meeting took even place. Both Russians and Ukrainians, and maybe even supposed Munich conference organizers, came to know that Trump already planned everything for them like a week before the event was to take place. So it was no surprise, nothing much happened. The big announcements about an upcoming truce or a peace plan have no tangible foundation behind them. All we saw over the past week, and this week including, was a meeting in Riyadh that produced vague, not binding agreements. Nobody signed anything. Nobody promised to do anything. Both sides just expressed respect, quote-unquote, for each other's positions and proceeded with business as usual. Our personal biggest hope for that meeting was at least the announcement of the next peace talks date and place. And, well, even that never happened. And meanwhile, Trump blasts out more statements as if each day brings another flip-flop between praising and condemning. Why does he do it? Because he can. This chaos of words keeps the spotlight locked on him. While the rest of the world struggles to keep track on his pronouncements, he remains the center of attention, dominating headlines without ever moving from talk to action. Trump's method of overloading the news cycle with daily bombshells is hardly new. Anyone who followed his earlier political moves saw him sign a bunch of executive orders, many of which were dead on arrival once they faced judicial scrutiny. The point was not to accomplish policy goals, but to keep the public frantically discussing him at all times. The more outlandish the news story, the less likely the media could effectively push back or go deeper. He infuriated federal workers with impossible proposals, flirted with ideas like inviting Canada to become the 51st state, and triggered tariffs that worsened diplomatic relations with existing allies. Much of it ended up in courts' file rooms buried beneath thousands of pounds of paperwork or remained completely unenforceable. But the real victory was in the spectacle. People opened their papers, turned on the televisions, or checked their feeds only to see Trump's name everywhere, literally. And now his statements about Ukraine followed exactly the same script. Each day making fresh claims, either peace settlements, finalizations, accusations against Zelensky, some renewed affection for Putin, so that everyone is trapped in coverage of the daily breaking news. Europeans are also reacting, ramping up a new military aid package worth 6 billion euros, because they fear Trump's pledges might signal an American pivot away from supporting Ukraine. Yet, none of Trump's promises or threats about ending the war have resulted in a single official step. The whole drama hinges on his words, not on his deeds. And also, as the old saying goes, if you make hundreds of promises, at least one of them inevitably comes true. So that whenever Trump realizes that something is finally going his way, he can claim that he promised to do it all along, and now look, things are finally happening, like I promised you guys. Strangely enough, some of us are already practiced in dealing with the leaders for whom statements and actions rarely line up. Being Russian, I understand perfectly well how those things work, and I can clearly distinguish these methods in their earliest stages. So whatever Trump is doing is nothing new for me. I've seen it all, and I can more or less imagine where all of this is going. In certain political systems, grand declarations mean nothing unless accompanied by actual moves on the ground. Over the past decades, Russians specifically grown adept at spotting the difference between posturing and real policy changes, while some Westerners are still unaccustomed to the idea that a prominent figure might unleash a torrent of words that apparently have no bearing on what's actually happening. Accepting this idea might be easier with Trump as the president, because he is known for, not always, kinda, keeping his promises. Just look at how his words might rattle officials, experts, or regular viewers in the United States, who assume that if a politician announces a new plan, that plan must be already in the works. I'm sure we have very few people like this here, but you cannot deny the fact that they do exist. It is a culture shock to see a leader who says the war is over, with absolutely no meetings scheduled, no representatives invited, no venue booked, and no agreements drafted. And meanwhile, people outside of the United States, especially those who have watched officials talk and talk, while rarely doing anything, they can separate the noise from genuine action. If you look closely, Trump is using a negotiation style reminiscent of under-the-table deals, giving a nod here, tossing out an insult there, all while both sides pretend they hold the winning cards. Putin seems to understand this game too, as well, and very well. That's what makes them seem like such good allies. When he praises Trump and claims that 2020 election was stolen from him, he is playing into the same performance. He tells him exactly what he wants to hear. And this reinforces Trump's mindset that this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. It is a constant back and forth of praise and condemnation. Ultimately, none of it is binding. We see no laws passed, no official statements signed, and not a single White House-level intervention that could alter the course of the war in Ukraine. Every time Trump vows to hammer out a peace deal in 24 hours, imagine him flipping through negotiating tactics he once used in real estate ventures. Threaten your rival, befriend them the next minute, then float impossible offers like returning Alaska or splitting Greenland, only to retract them later. It is a performance of tough talk and sweet promises designed to keep everyone off balance. Putin, for his part, picks up on these cues and responds accordingly, praising Trump's worldview because it suits his own propaganda. He wants a more complacent US stance on Ukraine. Each public show of support for Trump is a calculated piece of leverage. He dangles compliment like bait, hoping to secure more favorable conditions if Trump ever returns to the official negotiating table. Meanwhile, The tangible reality of the conflict remains unchanged. Ukrainian troops continue fighting. Western nations keep supplying military and humanitarian aid. There is no shred of evidence that Putin or Trump has initiated an actual plan to end the bloodshed. The only results of the past week's show are a few photos of officials leaving a meeting room in Riyadh, plus Trump's outburst on social media accusing Zelenskyy of being the aggressor. If you glance at Trump's Truth social feed, you will notice how quickly his tune changes. One day, Zelenskyy is a hero for fighting American favorite freedom. The next day, he's a dictator who does not know where American money went. One day he stole $500 billion from the United States. The next, it is already $350 billion. It is a war that should have never started in the first place. And then, it is only Trump who can end it, because he was in contact with both parties before the invasion started. The peace in Ukraine is the top priority last month, and now, apparently, there is a big beautiful ocean as a separation. So, why America should be even that involved? It is all newsworthy, so the United States media scrambles to cover it, draining their energy on ephemeral headlines, instead of focusing on deeper issues like how any real deal would be structured or enforced. Peace in Ukraine under Trump's administration is not impossible. The question is, will it be heavily favoring Putin, or will it end up somehow more or less acceptable by Ukrainians? We will never know until something concrete starts happening, and until then, the Trump's rhetoric will change dozens, if not hundreds, more times. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Please let me know down below in the comments what do you think is going to happen next week between Trump, Russia and Ukraine. I'll be very curious and I will go through the comments. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below, PayPal donations, Patreon subscriptions where you can get uncensored footage from Ukraine weekly, almost every single day at this point. And as always, thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.